Good morning. I'm here today. We're going to talk about and reflect on two articles that go over and talk about liabilities and the mitigation of those liabilities in STEM laboratories. And specifically with us today, we're going to talk about how that pertains to ag mechanics laboratories. So whether it be for woodworking, electric wiring, welding, or any of those processes in an ag mechanics lab. So looking at the first question, it says from my perspective, what teacher liability issues do ag education teachers face when teaching ag mechanics? And how do these issues relate to those ideas presented by Love and Zirkle? So the first one that really kind of stood out to me when I first read these articles is neglect of supervision. Most of the accidents that occur in those labs occur because of neglect of supervision. So the teacher not being present when the student was injured from operating equipment in the shop. So that's the first one that I see. The second one is the instructor as well as the students not following OSHA and NEOSH standards when allowing students to work in the shop. So there are rules and standards in place to prevent these accidents from happening or to reduce the risk of them happening. I know accidents, the risk of it will never be zero, but we can always reduce it to be very minimal. And the next one that I thought, as far as liability issues that we face, is us teachers ourselves just not being prepared or trained to follow all safety procedures in the shop to be able to effectively train those students how to operate each piece of equipment that they may be using in that facility. And so those are those issues that I have seen while looking at these articles. The second question asks, which ones are, from my perspective, most important for ag education teachers to employ when teaching ag mechanics? So the most important ones that I saw when reviewing Zirkle's article was to provide, in the first place, appropriate instruction. So a lot of times as instructors, we like to get out in the shop, we like to get them rolling on the welder or oxyacetylene cutting, and we like to be out there and get them in the shop to have those experiences. That way they are not losing engagement in our curriculum. But we don't need to neglect providing the appropriate safety training for that equipment. And so I think that is one of the biggest things that we need to consider whenever we are preparing students to be out in that shop with all those risks and safety hazards that will be around them. The next thing is keeping proper records. Looking through these articles, I realized that a lot of these cases come down to whether the teacher is liable or the school is liable or not is based on how well the teacher kept records and documentation of either the equipment itself or the students and the training that they had before using that equipment. And so I think that's most important, is having a very detailed paper trail that we can follow whenever something occurs. So that way we know exactly what happened, and that that student, if we did everything right, was prepared in the right way, and that we cannot assume the risk for that. The next thing is the post rules in a conspicuous place. They were saying that just to say that the student in a trial cannot say, well, I didn't know no better. Well, I think we do need to have those rules in place for that reason, but also it's a good reminder just to have that in front of you next to the piece of equipment, because sometimes we may just be forgetful. That is our nature, and I think it is a great practice to have when you have those rules right there next to the equipment, so that way you can look at it real quick and make sure that you are following the right safety precautions. And so I think that's just a good general practice. The next thing is that I would like to add to that list is to stay up to date on current safety practices through professional development. And in this, I'm talking about us teachers ourselves when it comes to knowing safety on each of the pieces of equipment. So that is what I'm looking at, or what I would like to add is that we just, as teachers ourselves, need to have good professional development. The next question is, that it's talking about several instances students were injured when operating common tools and equipment in the lab. What is one thing that we can learn as a result of these cases? Well, the first thing is, as instructors, we do not need to assume that we know how to properly use each of the equipment. I know I just watched a video on grinder safety in the shop and how to properly use it, and I learned many different aspects of grinder safety that I had not considered when using it in the shop, and I will be implementing those safety practices in my own shop with my own students, just because it kind of opened my eyes to how dangerous they can be. So, and again, it kind of goes down to that to my favorite quote is assuming, and you know what it does to you and me. And so we just, on top of that, we need to think about predicaments and put ourselves in situations in our minds that could possibly pose a possible safety risk to a student operating that equipment. And so it kind of goes back to that scroll saw situation. I would like to know, with that student and him operating that scroll saw and the teacher being liable possibly because in past events he had cut off the electricity to that scroll saw, but in that situation he hadn't. I would like to know if my safety guideline that I use in my shop of student personal responsibility of lockout tagout, if that would stand in a court of law and remove me from being liable in that situation. So that's one thing that I would like to do further research on. The next question is, Love provided several takeaways in his article. Some of those that I found most important were Haney, the article from Haney, stressing the importance of always wearing safety eyewear in the shop, no matter the occasion, no matter if they were walking through it. Safety glasses should always be worn. And I agree with that because anything can happen at any time. And so just being prepared with that and knowing students and knowing that students themselves should be wearing that could help remove possible safety hazards or accidents that could happen. I hope I'm not going to butcher this name, but Togolia's takeaway of constantly reinforcing safety, and that it is not just one event, struck with me very well. And that I think that is very important, that we're just not teaching safety at the beginning of the semester in a class, but that we should be proactive in reinforcing that all throughout the semester. And the last thing that I took away was, again, the importance of a paper trail and making sure that students' ability to operate equipment should be documented, as well as that they were instructed on how to safely use that equipment. I think that is part of the paper trail that we need to focus on, and I think that's also going to help us figure out and identify who and what are some possible safety risks and hazards are in the shop. And the last thing that we're going to talk about is consider the ideas and suggestions offered by Love. What could I do to help make my shop a safer place and reduce liability-related issues? Well, again, reinforcing the paper trail, document all services and repairs to equipment, document all damaged, malfunctioning tools and when they were repaired, and then, like I said, document students' ability to operate pieces of equipment. And the last thing was to follow and enforce all safety precautions, no matter how small they are and how redundant they are. And the last thing is being proactive and having a safe workspace and safe students. That is the main goal with us with teaching ag mechanics. It's a fun and great subject, and it's going to be even better when we know that our students are doing everything that they should to be safe while working in the shop. So that is my takeaways, and that is my reflection on those two articles, and I found it very interesting, and also will be taking some of these ideas and implementing them in my shop. So I appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you.